Are you looking for the best smart telescope? In this video we will look at some of the 5 best smart telescope on the market. Before we get started with our video, we have included links in the description. So make sure you check those out to see which one is in your budget range. Number 1. Unistellar Refscope 2 Smart Telescope. The Refscope 2 is the most powerful smart telescope around. It may ship with an excellent quality backpack for taking to dark skies, but the Refscope 2 copes brilliantly with urban light pollution. Its enhanced vision, images of faint galaxies, nebulae and star clusters can be viewed in the Unistellar app and shared as a PNG file complete with some basic information about the target. A 4.5-inch reflector telescope with a Somuchtech 347 image sensor, Refscope 2 has 64 MB storage and a 12-hour battery. The Refscope 2 has a wider field of view than any other smart telescope, bringing the moon into full view for the first time. Another unique feature is its electronic eyepiece. Made by Nikon, its micro OLED tech provides crisp, contrasty views of night sky objects with plenty of eye relief for glasses wearers. It helps Refscope 2 bridge the gap between traditional observing and gives users a reason to be outside, but it also makes it easier to focus the optics. Since it's a reflector telescope, it will occasionally need collimating. Read our full Unistellar Refscope 2 review. Number 2. Venice Stellino Observation Station Smart Telescope. The smart telescope that started it all remains one of the best, but there are caveats. It ships with a small Gitzo tripod that's really only good enough for wide open spaces or tabletops. To get some height, a full-size photographic tripod is required. Another slightly odd exclusion is a built-in battery, with the Stellino instead depending on an external 10,000 mAh power bank that needs to be cabled up. A backpack is also available as an add-on. At 6.4 megapixels its detail isn't quite up there with the Unistellar Refscope 2. But it's very close. Where Stellino does beat all other smart telescopes is with its connectivity. Up to 20 smartphones or tablets with the Singularity app can hook up to its Wi-Fi and watch its incredible images come down. It's also possible to export raw TIFF and FITS image files for post-processing to a computer just by attaching a USB-C cable. Unlike Unistellar's products, this telescope has autofocus and, as a refractor telescope, doesn't need collimation. So it's super easy to use. Read our full Venice Stellino review. Number 3. Unistellar Refscope Equinox Smart Telescope. At its core it's a 4.5-inch reflector telescope fitted with a Somuchtech 224 CMOS image sensor to power its enhanced vision, views of galaxies, nebulae, open clusters and globular clusters. It allows up to 10 smartphones and tablets to connect to its own Wi-Fi network to see and download its images. It's got 64 MB storage. That's identical to the Refscope and Refscope 2, but Equinox is different. The Equinox has slightly less resolving power than the Refscope 2, which makes it more difficult to split close double stars, a tighter field of view, less detailed images. Its natively 1.2 megapixel images are upres to 4.8 megapixels using software interpolation, and no electronic eyepiece. Its lack of an eyepiece makes sense from a cost-saving perspective, and it adds 2 hours of battery life, but it does make it more difficult to focus the Equinox. Instead it comes with a Bartinoff mask built into its lens cap that helps get stars really sharp, though it's a manual process. Since it's a reflector telescope it will occasionally need collimating. Number 4. Venice Vespero Observation Station Smart Telescope. The Venice Vespero is the most basic smart telescope around. There's no eyepiece, but everything else is an optional add-on. It's possible to add an excellent backpack, a light pollution filter, a dual band filter, for better capturing faint nebulae, a solar filter, and even a hygrometer sensor for humidity data. The first thing that needs upgrading is its tripod, which is a tiny tabletop affair, though it can be mounted on any photographic tripod. Its battery lasts just 4 hours, which is a shame, but can be topped up using any portable smartphone battery. The Vespero is also relatively low resolution, with its 2-megapixel image is among the softest of any smart telescope, and it can't be used for planets or the moon. And yet Vespero is hugely likable. It gets wonderful images from cities, even without the light pollution filter, and it's possible to export them as raw TIFF and FITS files for post-processing, though only via Wi-Fi and a browser. It doesn't need focusing nor collimation. As an introduction to the world of smart telescoping, the Vespero is hard to beat. See our full Venice Vespero review. Number 5. Unistellar Refscope Smart Telescope. The very first Unistellar Refscope is a little dated, and it's been replaced by the Unistellar Refscope 2 at the top of this guide. Its 1.2 megapixel image sensor is of most concern, though unless you plan to have a go at your own post-processing, then that shouldn't be a deal breaker. It has an eyepiece, which is something that most smart telescopes lack, is an eyepiece, though the detail and contrast aren't as good as on the Unistellar Refscope 2. It may not be the finest smart telescope around, but if you can get a good second-hand price, Unistellar no longer sells this model, then it's worth considering because it still offers incredible images of faint galaxies, nebulae and star clusters despite light pollution. Since it's a reflector telescope, it will occasionally need collimating. See below. Read our full Unistellar Refscope review.